What's up, everybody? It's Christopher J. Sickhands RBN. I know you're usually used to arcade content on this channel, but in case you didn't know, one of my other passions besides arcades is roller coasters, and it's nice when those two interests can cross over, because most amusement parks tend to have arcades in them. With that being said, today we're visiting Six Flags America in Bowie, Maryland. This park has been around in one form or another since the mid-1970s, but earlier this year, it was announced that this season is going to be its last operating season as a Six Flags park, as the land that it sits on is being sold off for redevelopment. With 9 different coasters in the park, including several historic coasters such as Firebird, which was the first coaster ever built by Swiss manufacturers B&M, or the Wild One, the oldest American coaster still in operation today, I knew we had to give it another visit. My kids and I hopped in the car on Thursday, July 3rd to take a drive down from New Jersey. While both my son and myself have been on every coaster in the park previously, my daughter didn't have any of them under her belt, and this was probably going to be her one and only chance to do so. Could we actually hit every single coaster? Let's be honest, Six Flags as a chain isn't really known for its speedy operations and quality maintenance. There was probably going to be a high possibility that one or more of the roller coasters would be closed during our visit. On top of that, it was a swelteringly hot day out there, with temperatures in the 90s and extremely high humidity. The game plan was to get in, get a ride on every coaster, and get out. And, of course, also film an arcade walkthrough while we were there. Only one problem, though. When doing research on the park, I couldn't find any evidence that there actually was an arcade anywhere on the property. Nothing was listed on the map, on the app, or on the website. Which is really strange because almost every Six Flags park I've visited over the years has always had at least one somewhere in the park. But you know what? That wasn't the main focus of the visit. We got in just a few minutes after opening and quickly knocked out our first couple coasters. First up was the wooden coaster Roar, and then immediately after that, we hit Firebird. Afterwards, we made our way to the back half of the park, which featured several unique coasters. Joker's Jinx was the only one we rode more than once the entire day, mainly because the station was absolutely empty and they let us stay on. After that, we went over to Superman Ride of Steel, which was a unanimous favorite for all 3 of us, and Batwing, the last remaining original model of a Vekoma flying coaster. Not gonna lie, I hated everything about it. Time check? Less than 2 hours so far, and we've already gotten 5 of the coasters checked off the list. We made a quick detour to cool off with some bottles of water and a ride on Wonder Woman's Lasso of Truth for a breath of fresh air. And after this, it was time for the Ace roller coaster landmark, the Wild One. This originally opened back in 1917 as the giant coaster at Paragon Park in Massachusetts, and then it was moved down here to Maryland back in 1986 and has been operating here as the Wild One ever since. And it's a classic that I hope can find a new home once the park closes, because we can't afford to lose another piece of amusement park history, especially since the operation of the even older Leap the Dips in Altoona, Pennsylvania is in question, and that one may never open again. Let's take a quick moment to look over this dedication plaque for the Wild One from the American Coaster Enthusiasts. Surprisingly, underneath the Wild One, we found our first sign of some arcade games. Granted, it was just a few claw machines, and several of them appeared to not be working, but hey, at least it's something. I saw a security guard walking around and asked them if they knew if there were any other arcades on the property. They mentioned that there used to be one over in the Steamtown section, which would be our last stop of the day. But they didn't think it was open anymore, which would explain why it didn't show up on the map. Well, we just have to check it out for ourselves. After this, there were only 3 coasters left for us to check off our list. Next up was the Ragin' Cajun, a spinning Wild Mouse coaster. But while we were on the brake run for the Wild One, we noticed it was out of order. Empty cars were sitting on the track, nothing was moving. Would this be the first L of the day? Thankfully, by the time we made it over there, it was back up and running again. We piled in a car ready to get our spin on, and, well, it never spun for us. Oh well, we still rode it and got it checked off the list. We found a couple more claw machines on our way to the next ride. There were a few more stuffed inside Johnny Rockets, soaking up the smell of those hamburgers and fries. And then, just a few hundred feet away from that, there were some more over by Chop 6, the park's Chinese restaurant. These ones weren't indoors, though. They were tucked alongside the outdoor seating. Nothing but plushies and rubber ducks to be found here. Just kind of a sad remnant of whatever was left over from the park's previous arcade. The second to last coaster on the list was the Great Chase, the park's only kiddie coaster. So we bounced over to the Looney Tunes section of the park to check it out. Both my son and I decided to sit this one out, and my daughter got a Zen ride on it with the train all to herself. It really wasn't very crowded the entire time we were in the park. I'm guessing that due to the heat, most people chose to visit the water slide section of the park instead. Needless to say, she got the ride, and finally we were down to our last coaster of the day, off to Steamtown to check it out. While we were on our way across the park, we stopped inside the Heritage House restaurant and came across the Heritage Wall, a tribute to the history of the park. This was apparently added last year for their 25th season as Six Flags America, and it featured memorabilia and history dating all the way back to the park's beginnings in 1974 as the Wildlife Preserve, and then again in its later incarnations as Wild World and Adventure World. Couldn't help but notice that for the 2024 plaque, they mentioned they added the largest investment in over 2 decades. And here we are a year later, and that investment is all for nothing since they're closing the park down. What a damn shame. I don't want to get into it too much, especially if you're not super into the inner workings of theme parks and all the drama that goes along with it, but Six Flags just merged over the last year with Cedar Fair to create the single largest operator of theme parks throughout the country. Lots of people were excited about this, but it's just been a lot of issues one after the other. There's been layoffs, ride closures, and now park closures as well. Thanks to this merger, our local park, Great Adventure, no longer has the world's tallest coaster, King to Ka. It's just an empty plot of land where an icon once stood. Like I said before, it's a damn shame. But I digress. We ended up making it over to Steamtown. We found the arcade, or what was left of it, just a big empty building with artwork painted over the roll doors. I'm not gonna lie, I would have killed for some nice refreshing air conditioning and some silly redemption games on this 90-degree day. But it wasn't to be. We rode the former Mind Eraser, now renamed Professor Screamore SkyWinder, and with that, we were done. Well, almost. We cooled off with a ride on their River Rapids ride. Total time, 3.5 hours. Back to the car, and off to get some lunch where it doesn't cost $20 for a single slice of pizza. Was it worth the trip? Absolutely. I'm glad we all got a chance to experience all of the coasters Six Flags America had to offer. But it felt bittersweet. 25 years of Six Flags America, over 50 years of history on this land, and it all comes to an end like that. It wasn't a great park, but it'll be missed. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Back to the usual arcade stuff tomorrow, I promise. See you then.